Jesus came to deliver you from this present evil world. And I want to explain that in a bit simpler terms. And I hope it helps you to realize that it's yours right now and you can take it and you can take everything that Jesus did for you. And yeah, the best way to honor someone is to just take and be grateful for what they've given you. If you don't use it, then you're not honoring them. And I think we've been honoring Him with our lips and God with our lips because we've been singing about His salvation. We've been saying thank you for the salvation. We've been writing about the salvation, but we haven't really been taking it. We haven't taken it and made it our own. And I'm not saying this to condemn you. I'm saying this that He wants you to take it, and He wants you to take it right now. He doesn't want you to continue to sing for 5 years about it, 20 years, 40 years, and not take it and not enjoy it. The whole point of Him doing it and coming and sorting out the sin issue is for you to enjoy and to take it now. It's like your dad giving you a present, and he's very excited because he knows this is exactly what you need, exactly what you want. You know, it's going to bring you so much joy and freedom, and it's going to bring him so much joy and freedom seeing you enjoying it. And you open up the present, you see it is salvation, and then you don't use it, you don't unbox it, you run to Him, and you just, for the rest of your life, just say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you sing about it and you say how good He is. And after a while, He's like, okay, yes, I know that. I know. I'm good. I gave it to you because I love you. But now go and unbox it. Go and use it and use it. That's the reason why I did it. And Jesus really came to save us. And there's a lot about His salvation that I think we need to cover. But I'm going to explain this one in a simple terms, and I'm going to use a bit of science to do that, just to explain it as a concept. And it helped me understand how important His salvation is. And again, like in most of my videos, I talk about the first Adam and the second Adam nature, and I'm also explaining why first Adam cannot save first Adam. And that is where we have ended up in most of Christianity, is we've taken first Adam, we sing about Jesus saving us, we've delayed His salvation up to the future when we die and then we get into heaven, and then we're stuck with first Adam still, and we're just trying to change first Adam, and we're using first Adam to change first Adam, and that can never work. It says Christ is your salvation, not yourself, not first Adam. Nothing in this world, nothing created can save you. Only Christ can save you, and He has saved you, but He wants you to take that and partake in His salvation. There's a difference between it being done already and you actually experiencing the benefits in your life. And this is why we have these videos. This is why I explain this stuff, because I want you to have those benefits in your life. I want you to experience it. It doesn't mean anything if it's good head knowledge, if you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but you don't experience in your life. My heart's desire is for you to experience in your life. And I asked Dad once, why do I have this burning and desire for people to experience in their lives? And he said, hey, it's not you, it's me in you that has that desire. I have that desire. So don't feel guilty for trying to share this. Don't feel guilty for trying to get this point across. Tell them as many times as you want, as you can, because I want them to experience the fullness of salvation. Now, I don't even know what the fullness is completely yet, manifested, but hey, I'm giving it as much as I can, and I'm enjoying it as much as I can, and I love the journey of experiencing more and more every day. And I can truthfully say that I've let go of my self-effort. I've let go of my robe of self-righteousness, and I'm letting Christ save me. And that word save is sozo, is healed, delivered, prospered, made whole. And that is for this life. You don't need that in the next life. You need this in this life. And He wants you to have that complete and utter life, free from decay, free from lack, free from distortion, right here, right now. And He's done it already. He wants you. Once He told me when I started to understand this, he told me if it wasn't part of Eden, it's not part of you. So if headaches wasn't part of Eden, it's not part of you. If fear wasn't part of Eden, it's not part of you. If getting tired was part of Eden, wasn't part of Eden, it's not part of you. And that became a very easy way for me to realize that all the stuff that I accept in my life actually is not part of his original design. And he came to restore us back, and he said much more than what Adam lost, we gained through Christ. So even much more than that we've gained. So if we just get back to Eden standard, it's much better than what most of us experience currently, and then much more we gain in Christ. So we need to get to the much more, and he wants us to have the much more, and we need to really start renewing our minds and start letting go of our perception of our Father and how the world works, and let Christ renew it to show us the real Father and show us what the reality should look like. It says, let it be on earth as it is in heaven. We need to see what heaven looks like, and heaven kingdom is within you. Just need to realize that you can now in Christ see it, and then when you see it, you can start creating that life here on earth. And so the issue with sin is that, I'm going to explain it in this way. Jesus never was angry at the sinners and tax collectors. He never rebuked them, and he actually never judged them, because he understood something. He understood that sin entered this world and death through sin, and that loop just kept on going and going and going for 4,000 years, and the people were so lost in delusion. They don't even know where their origins is. They don't even remember they come from Eden. They don't even remember they have got a Father, a God that loves them. So he knew it's impossible for them to manifest and create a good life or a righteous life or whatever you want to call it. So he never judged. He had compassion. Why did he have compassion? Because he understood it. He knew that there was so much distortion in those particular people, in those sinners and tax collectors, and they were so blinded that it was like the sheep without a shepherd. Nobody there to guide them. They don't even know that they can speak to God. Nothing. So he had so much compassion on them, and he didn't judge them. And he just said, listen, I am here to save you. I am going to save you. I am your salvation. God is your salvation. And for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes might be saved. It is that simple. Now, he wants to be your salvation, and he is your salvation. And first Adam cannot save itself. The other side of that, and the sinners and tax collectors is the one side of the coin, of the first Adam coin, and that is guilt and shame. So they know they are guilty. They know they have had 5 husbands, and the one they're busy with is not their husband. They know they're a drunkard. They know they're a tax collector, and they defraud people, and they know they drink, and they know they sleep around, they know they smoke, and they know they watch porn, and they know all that kind of stuff. So they feel guilty. They know it. They feel guilty, and the more they feel guilty, the more they just create a guilty identity of themselves, a sinner identity of themselves. And because they believe it in their mind and their heart, they just continue creating more of that in their life, and they create more lack in their life. And the way that they can handle it and work with this first Adam, they can just numb it. And the way that they numb it is they numb it through alcohol. They numb it through fighting. They numb it through acting out. They numb it through everything that we judge people of. Oh, look how bad that behavior is. Look how bad that person is. Look how, God, can you believe that person do that thing? Jesus didn't act like that. He didn't judge them. He didn't condemn them. You know why? Because he understood this. He saw compassion. He said, the only reason they act like this is because they don't know. But don't worry. I am here to save you. I am here to take all of that into my body, to die and to kill it, and give you my life. You don't even have to use your life to sort out your life. You don't even get your life in order. pull up yourself by the bootstraps or whatever the saying is. I am giving you my life, and you can just take my life through belief, and it will manifest heaven on earth. Not you manifest heaven on earth through your effort, through your right doing, through the sweat of your brow, for trying harder, but you just accepting my nature. You accepting what I'm doing, what I've done, and you accept the mind of Christ. You accept the spirit of sonship in you, and that thing, I will save you. I will create that reality in your life. The other side of the coin was pride, and that is where it is the people that are, I'm doing quite okay. I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. At least I'm not doing what those people are doing. I'm wearing the right clothes. I do the right stuff. I'm not sinning. I'm not doing those type of sins. I'm okay. I'm a good family man. I'm a good businessman. I have integrity. I've got good values. Yeah, and I'm okay. And that's where Jesus looked at the Pharisees and he's like, you are whitewashed tombs. And he rebuked them. He didn't rebuke the sinners and tax collectors, but he rebuked them because of their hardness of heart, because they were looking at their first Adam and thinking that thing is okay, thinking first Adam can save first Adam, teaching first Adam to do other actions could save first Adam from being a first Adam fallen nature, thinking first Adam doing something with first Adam can change his nature into a son or into a second Adam. It's like a dog acting like a lion can become a lion. That's what they think. So they're doing all the right stuff, and that's why the sinners and tax collectors asked Jesus for help and for healing and for raise these people from the dead, please, and show me this, and you know, I've worked all night. I don't have fish in my nets. I don't know what to do anymore. They were open to receiving salvation because they realized in some or other way that they can't do it. Their first Adam can't do it. And then on the other side, the Pharisees never really asked Jesus for anything. They didn't ask him for a miracle. They didn't ask him for healing. They didn't ask him for help, for multiplication. I'm sure there were people that had some illnesses or some issues in their community or in their family, but they wouldn't ask Jesus because, no, we're okay. We are okay. We're doing the right stuff, you know, and first Adam, we'll say first Adam, and they didn't even reach out. So that's almost why it's easier to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and focus on the evil side, because at the evil side, eventually you realize, oh, there's nothing I can do. I'm useless. If I don't accept salvation, then it's tickets for me. But the knowledge of good side is almost worse because it's like, no, I can still do this, you know. And what is sad is that a lot of churches who even understands this message and grace message have just started creating some of that behavior again, that okay, we're saved by grace and we're going to heaven one day, but now it's about my actions. Now I must still be a good man, a good first Adam. I must still act the right thing. And I'm not saying the actions aren't a good thing. Good actions will always be good. I'm saying, where do you focus your salvation on? Where does your robe of righteousness come from? Is it the self-righteous robe that you put on yourself, or is it the one that the Father puts on you after you've come back smelling like pigs, realizing you don't have anything to give him? Which one do you take? If it is your own robe, thinking I've done this so well, I can do this, I can maintain this, I pray this, I haven't done this, then that robe is like a filthy rag. And a filthy rag, when it was translated, I think one of the things like it is really a filthy rag. And Jesus said, oh, your righteous deeds are like filthy rags before the Lord. You trying to save first Adam with first Adam and doing it stuff, and like I said to the Pharisees, you clothing yourself and you making the outside pretty, but the inside first Adam is still seeped in first Adam sin nature. That was, you were born in it. You didn't sin to become a sinner. It came from all the way when distortion entered. And now that is like a filthy rag. I don't want to see it. Don't come to me with all your stuff. Don't come to me with your sacrifices and your this and your that and your good works and your, it's all filthy rags. It's all seeped in first Adam. Let me save you. Let me take away all of that and let me put my robe of righteousness on you, and it's the right robe. Let me put a ring on your finger. Let me put sandals on your feet. I do this. I am your salvation. You are not your salvation, and Christ is your salvation. You are not your own salvation. So that's why you can rest in what Christ has done. He has done it all for you. He has taken all of that distortion into his body. And it says we were created in the image and likeness of God, and that never changed. That reality never changed. That fact never changed. And what is God? He's a creator. That means we constantly create our reality. There's a saying that goes to say your personality creates your personal reality. What you think and what you feel constantly on a basis, what you say and what you believe in your heart, constantly, second by second, is creating your life. And most of that, for most people, to a large degree, is still first Adam that's creating first Adam realities, which is seeped in lack, separation, death, sickness, and all those kind of things. And Jesus came to break that cycle, to give you his body so that that body can be removed, and now you can experience kingdom realities. You can experience what Eden has, which was the original design, which was no death, no lack, no separation, perfect health, all those kind of things. Now, one of the important things I want to share with you, and I'm going to do it, explain it in this way, is that because we are creators, we are constantly sending a signal out saying this is who we are, and then the world needs to mirror back to us what we believe we are. It has to, because we are God's children. We are created in the image and likeness. We are created as creators like our Father, so we create. It has to respond to us. It doesn't have a choice. So we constantly are creating our lives. And a lot of people are creating the same things over and over and over and over again because they still have first Adam identity. And you've seen examples of this. You know of people in your life, and I can use myself as an example. After 20 years of trying, I realized I always end up in the same situation. Doesn't matter how hard I try to avoid it. Doesn't matter how hard I've worked to climb out of it. Doesn't matter how hard it crashed the previous time, and I've made some changes, and then I just end up, and it almost seems like it's just these repeating cycles and the same. And another way of saying it, it's the same experience just with a different face, and it comes around, and at a point I was like, oh, what the hell's going on here? God, what is this? Like, is this my future? Is this the rest of my life? I'm just going to create this. Is there any hope for me getting out of this cycle? And that is where most people are. They are continuously creating who they believe they are. And that is why it's so important to see yourself as God sees you, to accept your new nature, to accept what Jesus has done for you. Otherwise, you're going to continue creating those same cycles because you still think you are the same person, and the same person needs to create the same reality. That's just how it works. Now, Jesus came to say, listen, all things died, all things have been made new, and you are now a new creation. So if you accept the new creation, you can start creating a new reality and a new life for you. And that becomes effortless. So that is where the effort lies. The effort is not in creating a new life for you. There are examples of people creating lives by sweat and effort, but you listen to them and it's 30 years later and they lost family members, they lost their health, they went through breakups, they had major issues against their businesses and stuff, but at the end they said they made it. But look at all the death that was created. And why death is created is not because those people are bad persons or because they did the wrong thing. It's because things that were created in first Adam can only result in death. at the end of the day. It is like water can only end in it being wet. Water cannot end in it being a stone or being dry. That is just how it works. And that is why it's so important not to use the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and first Adam to try and create heaven on earth for yourself or the life you want for yourself, but start accepting what Jesus has already done for you and labor therefore to enter that rest. That's where he says the labor is. The labor is not trying to change this world, to change the outside world, because that will take time, that will take effort, that will take sweat, that will take stress. He said, don't focus on that. Labor therefore to enter that rest, because if you enter that rest of new creation, you enter that rest of sonship, you enter that rest of mind renewing, then automatically your state of being will start creating a different reality. It has to, and it is proven. I mean, there are articles about science basically proving that we constantly send out electromagnetic signals from our being, and that creates our reality. So the electrical, think of electrical as information. It could be an image, it could be a memo saying with words on that can be decoded, and magnetic is self-explanatory. Imagine that pulls a reality back to you. So it's constantly that cycle, and we are creating based on that cycle, and we are creating based on first Adam identity, and we're struggling to get out of that loop. Now, all of that electromagnetic cycles was from the day that they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was like junk code or bad data came into, or errors came into that whole formula, and it created the cycle of sin and death. You sinned, you had distortion, you didn't know who you are, you got wrong data, wrong information, and that ended up in death. Not because you're a useless, worthless person, not at all. It's just because it had wrong data and it had wrong information, and it's like putting junk code into your iPhone and, expecting the programs to run as they do. If I get a hacker to hack into an app on my phone, let's say WhatsApp or Snapchat or whatever, and I say, listen, go and change a bunch of code there and delete a bunch of information and all of that kind of stuff. If you, the end user, then go and you open up the app again, it's probably going to malfunction. Not because the app is bad, not because the phone is bad, it's because someone tampered with the data, someone tampered with the code. No, that's exactly what happened. We were in perfect union with the Father. We were there walking in the cool of the day. We were naked and unashamed. We didn't have a guilt conscience towards our Father. We didn't worry about Him thinking we were naked. We didn't worry about ourselves being naked. Then knowledge of good and evil came in. And again, think about knowledge. So knowledge, wrong information, wrong data came in. And Adam, all of a sudden, because he had wrong data, that came into his heart and his mind. And if you think about that example of electromagnetic, he started thinking the wrong stuff, and therefore and started feeling bad and feeling shameful, and therefore he started creating a different reality. And he created a reality that wasn't like Eden. And it wasn't, and this is debunking the whole thing that he was this useless thing that sinned, and we are all bad sinners, and look at how bad we are. No, we just got wrong information. Now Jesus came 4,000 years later to correct that. It corrected it in many ways. He corrected it in his physical body. What I personally believe is, after 4,000 years of genetically and programmatically and culturally and everything around us, we were so programmed with this wrong state of being, this wrong programming, that Jesus didn't come and say, listen, I'm going to give you a bunch of laws again, try to do these laws and get out of that. He said, listen, you know what I'm going to do? Cornu, I love you so much. I'm going to take your whole body that's seeped in that distortion, that whole electromagnetic field of you that doesn't have the right information, that doesn't know it is loved, that is full of knowledge of good and evil, full of the cares of this world. I'm going to take that thing, I'm going to pull it into my body as it is my own body, then I am going to die with that thing, killing it, nullifying it once and for all. And then I'm going to rise again in a new body, and then I'm going to give you my life, the life-giving spirit life, the second Adam life. I'm going to give you that life. That life is yours already. I've given it to you. Now, the only way that you can access it, the only way you can get it is through belief. And why it is through belief is because it means you can't work for it, you can't earn it, you can't pay for it, you can't kill for it, you can't manipulate for it. It is a fail-safe to make sure that you realize the only way to get that new life, to get that salvation, is to believe I am that good that I have dealt with it, to believe that I'm that good that it's not for heaven one day, it's for here now, to believe that I'm that good that I literally took your body full of that distortion, I died with your body in your place so that you don't have to die, and I'm giving you my life, my spirit. And that's why it says Christ is your salvation. The Christ in you, the Christ Spirit in you, what Jesus has accomplished, that is your salvation. Your first Adam is not your salvation. It will never be. Your works, your effort, your law keeping, it cannot be. It says Christ is your salvation, because Christ is the only thing that doesn't have distortion in it. Christ is the only thing that doesn't use knowledge of good and evil to know who it is or to become better. Christ is the only thing that knows exactly what the Father is like. And he dealt with the physical body so that we can now accept, let's just almost call it, they also say we've got the mind of Christ. So now you've got the mind of Christ, you've got his life, his peace, his joy, you've got the Spirit, you've got Christ in you. So now you take that, so you basically just accept his electromagnetic signature. You don't have to work yourself into a better electromagnetic signature so that you can start manifesting a better life and getting all of the stuff. You just look to Christ. Christ reflects back to you that's already in you. You get that information not from the world, not from knowledge of good and evil, not from self-effort. You get it from Spirit, directly from Spirit. It totally recreates and fixes the app of WhatsApp or Snapchat. Perfect code, perfect everything. And it sorts out the hardware, so the phone is perfect. Everything is as it should be and work, and now it automatically just works, and now you can just enjoy the benefits of it. You can open it up, it works, and you don't have to do anything for it. The only way that that happens is you just believing that it's done. You believing that someone else did it for you. You believing that your Father loves you that much that he would have done it. So that is why I want you to take Christ and what he's done, and Jesus, what he's done for you, and really get to grips with your salvation, which is at hand, which is now. And that is why I love to take the bread and the wine, because the bread reminds me that he took all of that distortion, all of that rubbish code that went into the electromagnetic field, all of that separation. He took that and he died with it. I don't even have to deal with it anymore. If I had to think about Jesus like I did 10 years ago, thinking that he saved me, but I'm still Cornu, I wouldn't have made it. And that is why I almost committed suicide, is because there was no way out for me. I just said, listen, I've listened to your grace message as much as I can. I realized I've been saved by grace. I realized that, it's you've done it, not me have done it, but I'm still Cornu. And literally, I cannot do it. I have burnout. I am at the end of my ropes, and the advice I get from well-meaning Christians are just do this, do that, or have an excellent spirit, or read Proverbs, that will give you what to do on a daily basis. And I told God, God, have you ever had burnout to a point where you can't get up in the morning? You can't even read Proverbs. If I can't read Proverbs or have an excellent spirit, or apply these things in my life, I am done for. My life means nothing. There's no hope for me. I can't have a family. I can't have children. I wouldn't. I can't have a good career. I can't have a good life. I can't enjoy my hobbies. Like, I'm done. And then at the end of everything, when I had nothing, that's when he started to explain to me this new nature thing, this fact that I don't have to be Cornu. I don't have to be Cornu, and I don't have to get Cornu through this life. I don't have to fix Cornu. I don't have to use the Bible and the Old Testament and apply all these we say we are free from the law in the grace churches, but they just give you another set of laws, actions, behavior, moral standards. And I was so grateful to realize that I don't have to be Cornu anymore, because Cornu failed. And then I felt guilty for thinking Cornu failed, and people said, oh, you run away from your responsibility and you have to own up. And then Jesus came and said, listen, I killed first Adam. You don't have to pay for him. Like, it's done, it's dead. If they don't want to believe it, if they want to sit with their first Adam, it's fine. But you came to this place, you came to this realization, and I am going to show you now what I've done with first Adam. And you can just take my life. I remember how easy it was. Like, he said, just take my life, take my mind, take my spirit, take my peace. It's my peace. You don't have to do anything. And I remember the one day I had this vision of me sitting at the back of one of these carts where someone else is running. And I saw Jesus running, and he was very happy, and he was doing his thing, and he was knowing exactly where to go. And I was just at the back there in the cart, and I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to work harder. I didn't have to pray harder. I didn't have to go to church more. I didn't have to be part of a community. I didn't have to do anything. I could just sit there and say, Jesus, well, I just take everything. And he just did it. And I realized, like, that is Christ in you. Christ in you is your salvation. You can just sit back and almost go into that rest, and you can realize that he's done with you. He's dealt with your first Adam, and he's given you his life, not your own life. He doesn't expect Cornu to be Cornu again. I use my name Cornu because you know me as Cornu, and it would be funny if people can't say my name and can't call me and don't know what to call me on WhatsApp or whatever it is. But the fact is, Cornu died. The guy, the flesh, the stuff that people remember, actually that guy died in Christ. And when I believed it, it was when I was basically born again. It wasn't like I was born again, like, I was this useless sinner departed from God on my way to hell. I was lost in delusionment, lost in first Adam, not knowing what to do. And then I was born again is when I realized I am this new creation. I am the Christ Spirit in me. I'm not this false identity that the world and the knowledge of good and evil created. And now I can just accept that new nature. And that was just my only salvation. Christ was my only salvation. And he's given you a whole new package. And I want you to look up and get that new Christ information, which is the true you and the truth, and just enter into rest and let it start manifesting in your life. And listen, we are all still busy with mind renewal, and it will take time to see all of the benefits, but at least we know it's there. It's for years we've been told that salvation is only when we die and we don't get to hell, so we go to heaven, and therefore we didn't even go search for any salvation. We didn't even try to get the sozo life, the Zoe life now. And that's such a waste. that is such a waste. It is here, it is now, it is for you. And yeah, again, why I said, like, use what Jesus did. Like, a lot of people have a lot of stuff to say, and a lot of guys are a lot of gurus, and um, I firmly believe that God came in flesh. He dealt with the first Adam issue. He gave us his life. He gave us a resurrection life. And that is why a lot of these guys who don't believe in Jesus, they believe in a lot of these tenets, but they don't believe in Jesus, and they don't believe in the sacrifice that he's done, and don't believe that he's killed first Adam, and don't believe that he's given us a new body, a resurrected body. Don't understand that it's just through belief that we can access it. And that is why all of the people are still just variant stages of death. Maybe earlier stages of death, later stages of death, still have a lot of distortion. And I believe this generation and the generation after that can really accept the beauty and the glorious magnificence of what Jesus did and fully partake in that new nature and divine nature. So this was on my heart to share. And that's why Jesus has so much compassion over you. He's got compassion over you. He doesn't hold anything against you. That's why he didn't judge the woman. That's why he didn't stone the woman. He knew it was just a thing. He had an issue with the guys thinking their first Adam can judge another first Adam. That is so self-righteous. You in your lost state judging another lost state. At least these people knew they were lost, so they accepted that they needed salvation. These guys like, no, our first Adam is so good, we can judge other. It's ludicrous. It's rubbish. He doesn't judge. He came to save. He knew the only salvation is him. Your actions will never do it. It will never do it. You can be the best person ever. It won't do it. If you don't accept your new nature, you won't experience salvation on this earth now. It's always like I wondered always why a lot of good people die so early. And a lot of people say that. You're like, yo, that doesn't look right, or that doesn't sound right, because that was such a good person. Why did he die so early? Or why did he get that sickness? That's not right. And we're so self-righteous, like, because that person actually was an okay-ish person, that means that him getting cancer wasn't right. But the drunkard, the idiot who killed someone, it's okay for him to get cancer. And that's not how God sees the world. He doesn't see it at all. He sees everyone as his child, his beloved children. He wants all of them in the house. He wants all of them to throw off the robe of their self-righteousness, put on his robe. He wants to clothe you. He wants to put you stuff. He wants to put you in the house. He doesn't ask you to build a house for him so that you can invite him into that house. He wants to invite you into your house. And to be honest, you are his house. He's happy. And that's why he had compassion, and he didn't judge. He didn't judge. Is anyone listening to this? Your past doesn't matter. What your parents did doesn't matter. What has been done towards you doesn't matter. None of those stuff matters. It's all part of first Adam. It's all part of delusion. Your Father, His Spirit, is asking you, will you now accept your new life? I've dealt with this. And if you accept it, you'll start seeing it. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He's holding nothing against you. He's not judging you, nor will he judge you ever. He has perfected everything about you. And you know what? You need to see Jesus and the sacrifice, because our minds and our hearts struggle to let go. We struggle to let go of all the guilt and the shame. We struggle to let go of that image of ourselves. We all have an image in our head. If I ask you to close your eyes now and just think of yourself in a third person, you'll see an image, and you'll probably not see an image that you really like. If you'll see it as maybe a scared or an insecure guy. You see a guy that's probably not worthy. You see a guy that didn't amount to much. You see a guy that hasn't achieved what he needed to achieve, or whatever it may be. Now, if you struggle with that, please take the bread and the wine in remembrance of him, saying, He's looking at you and saying, listen, if you feel like that, Cornu, this is what he told me, Cornu, if you feel guilty about this, if you feel like you're a failure, on a daily basis, you go and you take that bread and you take that wine and you realize, I've killed that personality. I've killed that person in me and I've given you my life. You don't have to be shameful. That person doesn't even exist anymore. That person is gone. He is perpetually gone. He's always gone. And even though you act daily like he's still there, the truth is, the spiritual truth is, he is gone. And I just want you to renew your mind to it. So if you struggle with it, if the world even comes to you and tell you, but Cornu, you've done this, Cornu, this is your past, Cornu, you show them me. And you show them, here's the proof that I do not exist anymore, but Christ in me. Here, Jesus has done it. I didn't do it, but Jesus did it. And there's the proof. Jesus died on the cross. There's your proof. And I am now a new creation. Where's the proof? Jesus rose from the dead. That's your proof. So I don't even have to, I use Jesus' death as, and what he did at the cross as a proof for me that I don't have to feel guilty, and I use it as a proof to the outside world saying, listen, if you wanted to condemn me, if you wanted to hold something against me, listen, here's the proof. That person doesn't even exist anymore. And then I encourage you all, if you can, Tommy Miller has a series on the perfect conscience, and I think it's such a good series because that is the whole point, is you take what Jesus has done and you apply it, and then the result is you have a perfect conscience. You have a perfect conscience. You have a conscience undefiled by the knowledge of good and evil, by guilt and shame or pride. It's perfect. So you feel no guilt or shame anymore, and therefore you come boldly into the throne room of grace and you make your request known to God. Like you're boldly. It's not like you're coming in and saying, okay, God, thank you for your grace and your mercy. I know it's because of your great grace and mercy that I just can stand here, but I know I don't deserve this, but please, can you just do this for me? Give it to me. And for years I was sort of in that movie, and then grace came in and I'm like, okay, cool. It's like, I don't have to feel like this anymore, but I do feel like, I'm still not a good thing. And Jesus was the only person you really loved and found perfect, and I am now, because of his sacrifice, I'm now accepted, but I'm not as perfect as he is. I'm still basically a bit of the sinner in this first Adam, still here, but at least your grace means like you see me as Jesus, or through the lens of Jesus, but I at the back of that lens, I'm still just me. I'm still this pretty worthless person. And then that was also debunked by Dad, like in 2019, when he ripped it off and said, no, I see you exactly as Christ now. I see you exactly as Christ now. So you're not a sinner saved by grace anymore. You are a new creation. You are perfect in my sight. You are all fair. And that is why it says, come boldly into the throne room of grace. Imagine running into the throne room and saying, hey, Dad, this is what I want. You might almost think like, oh, yes, the way we've been preached, like your dad will zap him with a lightning bolt, or how can you do that, or where's the reverence? But if you've got no guilt, if you've got no fear, if you've got no shame, if you think that your father thinks you're a beloved son in whom he's well pleased, and if you know his heart for you is to give you the desires of your heart, to have the best sozo and Zoe life ever, why wouldn't you go in and just boldly ask? You'll boldly ask. But we still come like we approach God like this, even with grace, and we put the grace card down. Remember Jesus? So because of Jesus, you need to listen to my request. No, that's not how Dad wants his relationship with his children. He wants an open relationship. Say, look, come jump on my lap. Raised and seated. Raised and seated. Co-heir, jump on my lap. Like, enter boldly. Son, daughter, I love it. I love it when you run into my room and just jump on me and hug me and kiss me because you feel no fear, you feel no shame, you feel safe. And you don't have to play the card like, oh, you know, almost like we guilt tripping God with the Jesus card and his sacrifice. No, he loves us that much. He made us exactly like him. We are birthed of him, and Jesus came to just deal with the distortion and that side of things. So you can just accept it. He loves you. Practice daily to enter into the throne room boldly. Um, use communion to daily remind you of your identity that was crucified, and you've got a brand new one. You've got a brand new state of being, a brand new electromagnetic field, brand new mind of Christ, brand new everything. And it doesn't matter if it takes a day or a year or 5 years, but just keep on renewing your mind to that truth. It's all it is. Enter rest and believe. Be blessed.